Imagine you just harvested the biggest crop of your life. Months of hard work finally paid off. You cleared the land, planted the seeds, protected the crops. You survived droughts, storms, and hungry animals. Your family celebrates because this harvest will feed you through the winter. Then, a stranger walks into your field. He quietly fills a sack with your wheat. You rush over and shout, "Hey, that's my food." He calmly replies, "It belongs to the king." You'd probably call that theft. So here's a question. If nobody likes paying taxes, why has almost every civilization in history invented them? And more importantly, why do we still pay them today? The answer begins long before kings, long before money, and even before governments. Anthropologists studying the Hadza people of Tanzania and the San people of southern Africa found something remarkable. Food wasn't treated like personal wealth. It was treated like tomorrow's insurance. Today you might return with a successful aunt. Tomorrow, you might return empty-handed. Sharing wasn't kindness. It was survival. And in that world, taxes would have made absolutely no sense. Who would collect them? What would they pay for? There were no roads to build, no bridges to maintain, no cities to defend, no governments to fund. Life was simple. Then, everything changed. Around 12,000 years ago, humans discovered agriculture. They harvest far more food than nature would ever give by chance. For the first time in history, families could settle in one place. Villages began to appear. Populations grew rapidly, and something completely new entered human history. Surplus. This one idea changed civilization forever. Because once a village has extra food, not everyone has to become a farmer. Imagine a village of 50 people. If 10 farmers can grow enough food for everyone, what do the other 40 do? One becomes a blacksmith. Another makes pottery. Someone builds houses. Someone watches over children. Someone guards the village while everyone else sleeps. Suddenly, society becomes far more advanced. But it also creates a problem that humans had never faced before. Picture a farmer working from sunrise to sunset. Now, picture the village guard. He's protecting everyone from raiders. He's not growing food. So, who feeds him? Now think about the builder repairing irrigation canals. He's not farming either. Who feeds him? The village leader spends all day solving disputes, organizing workers, planning for the next harvest. He's not growing wheat. Who feeds him? For the first time in history, some people were working for the benefit of everyone, instead of producing food for themselves. And that meant the village needed a completely new system. Every family would contribute a small part of what they produced, so that other people could perform jobs that benefited the entire community. Not because anyone enjoyed giving up their harvest, but because everyone gained something in return. Protection, water, storage, organization. Without realizing it, humans had invented one of civilization's most important ideas. The very first taxes, not paid in money. Money didn't even exist yet. They were paid in grain, livestock, fruit, or even labor. If you couldn't spare food, you might spend several days helping dig canals, repair roads, or build village walls instead. Taxes weren't originally about making rulers rich. They were simply the cost of living together. Now imagine you're living in ancient Egypt about 5,000 years ago. Every summer, the Nile River floods. When the water finally disappears, it leaves behind some of the richest farmland on earth, perfect for growing wheat. But fertile land alone isn't enough. The river needs canals. The canals need repairs. Grain needs to be stored before it spoils. Villages need protection from invaders. None of that happens by itself. So Egypt asked every farmer to contribute a portion of their harvest. Not coins, not paper money, just grain. Government workers stored thousands of tons of wheat in enormous granaries. That grain paid soldiers, fed builders, and helped entire communities survive years when the Nile didn't flood properly. In many ways, the taxes collected as grains ensured the Egyptian survival. However, the Romans understood this better than almost anyone. Their empire stretched across 3 continents. They built thousands of kilometers of roads. Massive aqueducts carried fresh water into crowded cities. Professional armies guarded distant borders. People still admire these achievements today. But here's something we rarely think about. Every stone in every Roman road, every brick in every aqueduct, every soldier standing at the frontier, was ultimately paid for by ordinary people. Without taxes, Rome would never have become Rome. But something else happened as governments grew more powerful. Taxes stopped being just a way to solve problems. They also became a way to control people. Imagine you're the ruler of a kingdom. Who controls the food? You do. Who decides how much every family must contribute? You do. Who pays the army? You do. The moment rulers controlled taxes, they also controlled the most valuable resource in society: power. And human nature being what it is, some people couldn't resist abusing that power. In many ancient kingdoms, rulers didn't collect taxes themselves. Instead, they hired tax collectors. These collectors promised the king a fixed amount each year. Anything extra they collected, they kept for themselves. Imagine being told you owe 10 sacks of grain. The collector demands 15. 5 for the king, 5 for himself. And what could you do? Argue? Refuse? Most people couldn't. Tax collectors soon became some of the most feared and hated people in history. People weren't always angry because taxes existed. They were angry because taxes had become unfair. And history has shown us something fascinating. People can tolerate paying taxes for a very long time, but they almost never tolerate paying unfair taxes. Soon, entire nations would begin asking a dangerous question. If we're paying for the government, shouldn't the government answer to us? That single question would topple kings, start revolutions, and completely change the relationship between ordinary people and those in power. History has taught us one important lesson. People rarely rebel because taxes exist. They rebel when taxes become unfair. One of history's most famous examples happened in 1773. Across the Atlantic Ocean, Britain's American colonies were furious. The British government kept introducing new taxes, but the colonists had no representatives in the British Parliament. So they asked a simple question. If we're paying taxes, shouldn't we have a voice in how they're spent? Their slogan became famous around the world. No taxation without representation. One cold December night, a group of colonists climbed onto British ships in Boston Harbor. They threw hundreds of chests of tea into the water. The protest became known as the Boston Tea Party. It wasn't really about tea. It was about who had the right to tax whom. Just a few years later, that disagreement grew into the American Revolution. Around the same time, France was facing a different crisis. The government had run out of money. To solve the problem, it demanded even more taxes. But there was one huge problem. Many nobles and wealthy elites paid very little. Ordinary farmers and workers carried most of the burden. Food prices rose. Harvests failed. Taxes remained. Eventually, people stopped asking for lower taxes. They demanded a completely new government. The French Revolution changed Europe forever. History repeated the same lesson once again. People can accept taxes. What they struggle to accept is unfairness. Fast forward to today. Your taxes probably don't come in sacks of wheat anymore. Instead, they quietly disappear from your salary, or they're included in the price of almost everything you buy. Fuel, groceries, electricity, airplane tickets, even your morning coffee. The method has changed, but the idea is exactly the same as it was thousands of years ago. Millions of people each contribute a small amount. So society can build things that individuals cannot build alone. Roads, hospitals, schools, police, courts, public transportation, national defense. Whether you agree with every government decision or not, every modern nation depends on this system. Now imagine something different. Imagine waking up tomorrow, and every tax on earth had disappeared overnight. At first, it sounds amazing. You keep every dollar you earn. No deductions, no tax returns, no government collecting anything. But then, who repairs the highways? Who pays firefighters? Who maintains airports? Who funds scientific research? Who protects coastlines? Who responds after an earthquake or a flood? Civilization doesn't run on wishes. It runs on resources. And those resources have to come from somewhere. Of course, that doesn't mean every tax is fair. History is full of governments that wasted money, corrupt officials, greedy rulers, pointless wars. People have argued for thousands of years about how much governments should collect and how they should spend it. That debate will probably never end. But one fact has remained surprisingly consistent. Every civilization that became large enough to build cities, protect borders, and organize millions of people, eventually invented some form of taxation. Not because humans enjoy paying taxes, but because civilization itself has a cost. So, why did humans invent taxes? Not because kings wanted more money. Not because governments were born greedy. Those problems came later. Taxes began with something much simpler, a village where one family grew food, while another protected everyone from danger. One family dug canals, while another stored grain for winter. Everyone gave a little, because everyone gained something in return. That simple idea spread from villages to kingdoms, to empires, and eventually to nearly every country on Earth. The next time you hear the word tax, don't just think about money. Think about a farmer standing in a field nearly 10,000 years ago, giving away a small part of his harvest, so the entire village could survive another year. Thousands of generations later, we're still doing exactly the same thing. The numbers have changed. The currencies have changed. The governments have changed. But the idea never did. Maybe the real question isn't why humans invented taxes. Maybe it's why every civilization that wanted to survive eventually invented them.